I'm really glad to be here. Unfortunately, it's my last day, and tomorrow I'm going back to my country. So I hope that today's presentation will provide you interesting things about my country, but also from a scientific point of view about future opportunities of collaboration with me and my colleagues. And I have named today's presentation Ecotourism Development, Challenges and Good Practices. I have chosen this particular theme because it was also my PhD thesis focus, and I have been studying it ever since 2009 in different articles. And also because for Romania, my home country, it is a real opportunity of sustainable development as far as tourism is concerned. So I will start, first of all, although I'm sure that you have heard until this moment about this concept, with a short introduction into the framework of this particular form of tourism, which is about a responsible travel to natural areas, but with two other conditions. It has to improve nature conservation, and it also has to bring benefits to local communities. So, having that in mind, I tried to find in the specific literature a map which would place ecotourism among other forms of tourism which take part in natural areas. So if you look, the natural area tourism, semicircle, includes wildlife tourism, adventure tourism. And all these can become part of ecotourism only in certain moments where they do meet the criteria and the principles which are set by ecotourism. So ecotourism is about conserving nature, but also about bringing benefits to the local people. Who are ecotourists? Who are these people who can be named eco or ecological tourists? Eco is the short name for ecological. So first of all, they are interested in natural areas. You cannot take ecotourists only in urban areas where you do not have nature. You can mix that urban experience with a natural immersion, but you cannot have ecotourism without nature. Then, they want to meet local people. These are not tourists who will stay in five-star hotels and only meet the personnel within these hotels. They want to meet the local community members. They want to experience their local culture, folklore, singing, dancing, how they cook, gastronomy. They enjoy local food. These are not people who will eat in McDonald's or KFC. It's about experience the local gastronomy. In addition, because ecotourists are always interested in learning something new, all ecotourist destinations and businesses need to provide very good information and interpretation of that information in order to bring it in a nice package and interesting form to tourists. And this is where the local guides come as an important role in providing this information, and also the good infrastructure of information and interpretation. There are lots of jokes about ecotourists, saying mostly that they are a bit extremist because they tend to leave the comfort of certain tourist services in order to minimize their impact on the environment. It is true in some cases, but very few. However, an ecotourist also needs a toilet with, normal, comfortable standards. He or she also needs a bed, a nice, comfortable bed. That doesn't mean that if you're an ecotourist, you'll sleep in the bushes and you won't harm the environment by going to that destination. That's really extreme and it's almost impossible. So as any other form of tourism, ecotourism also has a negative impact on the environment. It's impossible to travel to a place without polluting. I mean, there are very few people who actually travel to destinations walking, and in many cases it's not possible. Like, I wouldn't come to Gran Canaria walking or swimming. So coming here, I already polluted by taking air transportation. So that doesn't mean that ecotourists have zero impact on the environment, but they are aware of that impact, negative impact mostly, and they're trying to minimize it and to bring either funds or any type of benefits to the local environment and local communities. Why should we develop ecotourism in Romania? Well, because Romania still hosts 40% of the population of brown bears in Europe. Like in Spain, you have 200 bears who live in the wild. We have 2,000 and over, which are registered, 2,000 registered, but they might be more. Another thing is that we still have large surfaces which are keeping original virgin forests. That means forests who were never intervened by people. We have one of the biggest deltas in Europe, that is the Danube Delta, which is a sanctuary of birds, especially in spring. And we have a great variety of habitats and forms of nature. Luckily, we also have a legal environment which allows the protection of these areas, but not sufficiently. And having all these natural areas, there are lots of tourism activities, which can be offered to tourists in this type of natural environments. Horseback riding is very popular in Romania, but within the wild. So you can actually see wild birds or small wild animals by going horseback riding. Of course, you won't see a bear or a lynx or a wolf when you're on the horse, because the horse will get scared and run. But you can see birds, and you can see small animals in the wild. The bird watching activity is one of the most popular things that tourists do in the Danube Delta and other wet lands in Romania. But also hardcore ecotourism activities such as river rafting, zip line, rappel, rock climbing, mountaineering, which are quite popular among the young segment of tourists especially. But also photo tours. Photo tourism in Romania is quite well developed because there's very varied landscape. You can take very nice pictures throughout 4 seasons, so it changes all the time. And I know this picture isn't very nice, but in the case where you cannot see wild animals because they're not as easy to track in their natural environment. I mean, it's not like, hey, I'm the guide, I will take you to bears. And the bears come and you can feed them. No, it's not that easy because wild animals cannot be controlled. So sometimes ecotourists do not actually see the bears or the lynx or the wolves, but they see their leavings or they see their tracks. Right? And this is interesting for ecotourists, and especially in winter time, you can have this even better and easier because we have the snow and you can see these things on the snow easier than on normal dry land. Of course, all this natural potential is combined in the ecotourism programs with the rich cultural attractions that we have in Romania. Okay, some of them are included in the UNESCO Heritage List, and they're very well appreciated. Why do we need ecotourism in Romania? Well, because unfortunately there's a lot of unsustainable exploitation of natural resources in Romania. pollution, lots of selling of inherited land to strangers or Romanians who do not use it in a sustainable way, mostly for industrial development. There is a lot of illegal logging in Romania. You know, people cut the forest illegally, and you have really mountains which don't have forests anymore. It's really tragic. We have illegal hunting, poaching, and that's also a big problem for ecotourism areas. And Romania, unfortunately, has a very poor highway infrastructure. But even when we are building new highways, the local or national authorities do not take into consideration the fragmentation of habitat for animals. Like large carnivores such as bears, wolves, they need large areas to circulate in order to reproduce, to find food and everything. And if you cut these corridors where they are circulating with a highway, even if you put those, bridges all over it, it's not sufficient for these large carnivores. Maybe for a rabbit or something, a deer, but not for these animals. And another thing is that there are certain areas in which traditional architecture is starting to disappear, especially in destinations which are not developed in a sustainable way. So new hotels, new tourism constructions are really ruining the landscape with too modern architecture. And a solution would be in these areas with large forest surfaces to actually show to the local communities that they can have an alternative of using this beautiful scenery without poaching, hunting, illegal logging, but still earning money from the forest. Okay? So we can use the forest to attract ecotourism, and our next generations will have the same forest as we do and breathe the same fresh air, and we can still be rich from providing tourist services without cutting the forest or killing the animals. It can bring very good conservation funds, because ecotourism has to bring this benefit to nature conservation. So ecotourism businesses are redirecting parts of their profit to ecological programs. Another thing is that it educates both tourists about behaving in the wild as well as local community members. So people know not to throw waste in the forest. People know not to scare away animals and start shouting while they're in a protected area, and other rules that are enforced by these ecotourism programs. The best promoter of ecotourism in Romania is the Association of Ecotourism in Romania. It's called like that. It is mostly made of private sector members, like tour operators, accommodation units, even tourist attractions, but also it is made up of non-governmental associations, especially who are interested either in developing tourism or protecting nature. And this particular organization has implemented, ever since 2006, I think, yes, an eco-certification system, which has two potential beneficiaries. One category would be tour operators, but they don't actually certify the business, like the tour operator, the travel agency. They certified a tour which is provided by this operator, because a tour operator can offer a variety of tours, like an ecotourism tour, but also a hunting-based tour. So even though one of them is sustainable, the other one is really the opposite. So they can certify tours with only maximum 15 participants, because over this number they think it's mass tourism, and you cannot control these tourists and get them into a good ecotourism program. And another category is small-scale accommodation with maximum 25 rooms. Until now, there are over 40 tourist products certified, and it's going on ever since. Another thing that this association has promoted is the concept of ecotourist destination, which is very difficult to certify because it's no longer controlled by one company. It is about things that happen in a micro destination, which is really difficult to control and really make fully sustainable. However, because we have a national ecotourism strategy since 2009, and this was mainly given by the new orientation of the Ministry of Tourism in Romania ever since 2009 towards green forms of tourism in our country. And they even changed the logo and the slogan of our country as a tourist destination. It is Romania, explore the Carpathian garden. So it takes you to green things, green destinations, good food, and also incorporating ecotourism activities. And ever since, they have started to promote this concept of ecotourist destination. And in 2014, we already had 2 destinations in our country which were evaluated and designated as ecotourist destinations. And this system that was put in place is based on international standards. It was not really only invented by Romanians, but they used different types of eco-tourist certification that are found in the international world. And they're all about sustainable tourist practices and respecting local natural heritage. And this is a chance for small micro destinations to actually become visible on the international market, because by being designated or certified as an ecotourist destination, the Ministry of Tourism is starting to promote the destination on the international and national market. They have specific brochures for it, they have campaigns, so it's starting to grow. In order for a destination to be designed as an ecotourism one, there are certain criteria. So first of all, it needs to be a micro destination that includes at least one protected area, but it also needs a minimum of tourism infrastructure, accommodation, medical care, bank in the nearby. It also needs to have a destination management organization which is built as a partnership with non-governmental authorities, but also local governmental authorities and any type of administration of the protected area. And also, it needs to have a responsible approach to promoting and giving tourists ecotourism programs. And it also needs to have at least a few green businesses in the area. If they're eco-certified, it's even better. And also, good information and interpretation infrastructure is necessary, as well as a holistic image that integrates the protected area and the local community. These are the main criteria for designating an ecotourist destination in Romania. And this is a map of Romania with the main ecotourist destinations which are being developed. The ones in red have already been designated. They are the 2 that I have spoken about. Brașov is here, so you can see we are really close to one of them. And all that is in blue is about to be designated. So they're working on the eco-certification program. Okay, you can see here is the Danube Delta area, and most of them are within the Carpathian Mountains, which are in green on this map. A key thing that was meant to provide a good information about these ecotourism destinations was having maps, and that's why the association developed a good map collection. And another thing was to build some thematic trails that ecotourists could take within these areas in order to provide even outdoor lessons, educational lessons for pupils or even students or scientists, and also to try to make a nice walk and stroll into the area as an interactive experience. And this is where the concept of interpretation comes into the role, which is promoted as one of the principles of ecotourism in Romania. We are all trying to provide information to tourists, right? But how can we make this information relevant, interactive, engaging for the audience? Well, this is the answer, through interpretation, which is now not only used in the natural areas, but also in cultural sites. But for ecotourism, it is crucial because this is how we can educate tourists. And it is about transmitting an idea, a message, but provoking the audience to think for themselves and come to their own understanding of the subject, not just transmitting scientific information, okay? And this can help them really understand the essence of a place and recommend it to other people, maybe come back for other types of experiences, and it provides emotions. Not just getting bored when a guide tells you all about an area's history, an area's plants or names or I don't know what. Okay, this can provide you emotion. And when you have emotion, you have a meaningful experience in the destination. And this is crucial for good satisfaction. Okay? However, in order to provide a really efficient interpretation, we have to choose a theme, because it is very difficult to provide many information at once and still keep it meaningful and so that people remind it when they go home. So we have to choose a theme. It is not easy, but we have to take into consideration that when tourists come to an area, to a destination, they are not there to study like our students are, right? They come to relax. So if you tell them too much about the area, they will get bored and not remember anything when they go home. So if you just try to provide one theme that will stick in their mind when they're going home, that's very good, okay? So, for example, I have two examples actually of theme interpretation. One is about a meadow full of flowers. So we think we have a guide who is a biologist and tells ecotourists about that meadow full of flowers. So a normal information guide would say, okay, this plant is called like this in Latin, in popular language. You can use it for I don't know what, and so on with the entire meadow of flowers. Of course, after 10 flowers, nobody will remember anything, I guarantee you. However, if we choose the theme of presentation, strategies that flowers use for pollinating, because each flower has a different style of pollinating, that might get into people's mind and not give them a boring experience, but a more interactive one. Or if we are on the top of a mountain, we have many mountains in Romania, so this is easy to apply in our context, we can choose the theme of presentation of how plants are struggling with the wind. Now it's very windy, so imagine a guide showing tourists how difficult it is to stay against the wind on the top of the mountain and explaining them how plants are facing this all throughout the year, each day. So that's why they are so small. The vegetation is quite small on the mountain tops, right? Because of the wind. So that's a very simple idea that people might remember when they go home. If you start explaining scientific facts, almost sure they won't remember anything, Okay? So, as in fashion and any other field, less is more. Okay? So, if we provide less meaningful thematic information, people might remember more than they would from a very, I don't know, complex presentation. And I will end my presentation with some images of panels which are used for the information and interpretation of the natural heritage in different protected areas in Romania. Unfortunately, most of them are in Romanian, but you can still see that they are using both pictures of different animals or plants, as well as information and some drawings which are making the presentation a bit more interesting. I will show you furthermore that some of them even have certain characters which are incorporated in the story, which are meant especially for young tourists, especially young pupils who are going to these protected areas for outdoor lessons, but they can actually get to the adults as well, and especially to families with kids when they're going in these areas. And especially in these natural areas, it's important to have these panels using natural and local materials, and also incorporating the local community's life in those stories. This is one of the thematic trails in one of the natural areas in Romania, which is using the squirrel as a character. So the squirrel tells the story of the forest, and it is very popular among children. And it presents different types of habitats, different species of plants and their fruits, their leaves, and a nice story to finish with. Of course, kids are really, really happy when they do this. And although these are school groups, especially for families with kids, it can be a very nice interactive experience and a nice stroll. Other thematic trails are a bit more scientific, to put it that way, like this one. They're not really for young kids, but they can still be explained in a lower level for groups of pupils. Like this one, which is from a volcanic area. We also have extinct volcanoes in Romania, and they explain how the volcano is active, extinct, how the forms of landscape are created, and also because it is a very famous area for milk products, they explain how we get the cheese and all these dairy products from the actual milk. And also an interesting thing, I don't know if you see it, this is a better view, because in this area there are lots of large carnivores which you do not see normally because they are living in the forest and not really approaching people. They feel anything. Different tracks of animals that tourists can see, so they can recognize them when they see it in the wild. Of course, other information about the landscape, and this is the end of my presentation. I hope it was intriguing for you and interesting, and I would like to acknowledge the Association of Ecotourism in Romania for providing me these images that I have showed you with the thematic trails. But I do hope that I have motivated you in a way to discover for yourself all these areas that we have, quite diverse in Romania. And this is why I brought a series of brochures, maps that you can take on your way out. And also for the teaching staff of the university, I'm hoping that you might promote our university as a good Erasmus choice for your students, because I have just heard from our Erasmus coordinator that we have had quite a lot of students from your university until 2 years ago. I don't know what happened, but they stopped coming. So please encourage them to come, because Brasov is a very beautiful city in the mountains with a nice cultural area. And it provides, we also have a program. It is not about tourism, but we do have a tourist course that I actually teach. It is called Business Administration, and it's in English. So they can have equivalent of different specialities. And we have good English speakers among our staff, so I'm sure they will understand everything. And it can provide a good international experience for them. And Romania is much cheaper if you come from the Eurozone, because we don't have the Euro yet. So they can be kings in their own castles, as I've heard from some Erasmus students who are staying in a very luxurious flat in Brasov because they afforded it due to their scholarship. So I think it's going to be a good opportunity for them. So thank you very much for listening. I'm open to any questions about the presentation, about Romania, about our university, anything. And please be free to take these materials. So thank you very much.